Next, I'd like to bring Dell Global Category Manager Shannon Blando to the stage. Shannon, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Beth.
I want to congratulate you as well for being named a BTN 2020 Best Practitioner. You're here today because BTN recognized your particular acumen in managing the Dell Hotel program through the COVID-19 crisis. And like our previous Best Practitioner, Sabrina, you worked with a technology provider to create new functionalities that would not only serve your program, but provide insights for many travel managers and travelers in a critical time. So you chose to renegotiate your contracts with hoteliers, leaning strongly into dynamic pricing and taking advantage of market conditions. Yet you also met your partners at the table with the intention to collaborate and to figure out how to operate in an environment where historical data really could not drive agreements. So you've created an environment where the supplier and buyer will be ready to handle volume as demand recovers in 2021. So I want to congratulate you on those accomplishments, and then I'm going to ask you some questions. All right. So Shannon, after the COVID-19 crisis this spring and sort of the repatriation of many international travelers, and that was a real, that was a real emergency situation for so many travel managers, and many companies put a hard stop on travel. But Dell still had people traveling in the spring. Tell us who was traveling and why.
So like many tech companies, Dell's spend declined drastically and quickly, right, by more than 90%. So we had very firm travel restrictions in place. We allowed for critical and essential travel only. So those were mainly our service technicians traveling to support Dell's clients. Very good.
And I think that is the case for many technology companies. There are a handful of organizations and aid organizations that also had travelers on the road. But you saw what many of those travel managers saw with essential workers still going. Market rates were clearly lower than your negotiated rates. Was it at that point that you knew you needed to turn on dynamic with all of your partners? And how did you start to manage that?
So absolutely. But the Dell program was already about 80% dynamic pre-COVID. Okay. So when we ceased traveling, we knew that there was a shift that had to be done to dynamic. And it was really the ideal time because the market had changed. So instinctively, we knew that these changes would be here for the long haul, but we were already prepared. So our hybrid program had been successful for really the last 2 years because we built the strategy to be fluid and agile. So it made complete sense to convert our remaining negotiated rates over to dynamic given the market decreases. So the change in this strategy allowed Dell to take advantage of the low rates while it gave us time to establish a governance process and be able to deliver future savings when we do return to travel.
Very good. And how did you approach your hoteliers? What was their response? Did you take data to them for these discussions, or were you able to turn everything on immediately? Because I know there was a lot of discussion around, well, when should this sort of switch get flipped, right? Not for you, but for the entire industry. So tell us kind of your experience with your hoteliers and how you approach them with this change.
So we began with candid conversations with our high volume strategic partners. So these conversations were definitely different, right? Literally, it's kind of like the first of its kind.
Right.
It wasn't the traditional negotiations that we normally would do. So keeping in mind that the market had changed, we had to leverage our strategic relationships as the historical data, like you mentioned, was no longer a valid consideration. So we were fully transparent with our partners, and we basically told them what we knew and also what we didn't know. So we focused on key markets, and we used a combination of historical data, assumptions, kind of like our crystal ball, right, and forecasts. So we knew our volumes would be different, and we needed to work with our hotel partners to be flexible. So we converted our program to dynamic immediately because we were already more than halfway there. And we were able to renegotiate better discounts into 2021. So really wouldn't have been possible without our hotel partners' collaboration.
Very good. And were they eager to get your business? Were they in a situation where they needed that, or was there some back and forth that you really did need to go and collaborate with them?
I mean, we definitely had some back and forth conversations. The conversation was more that, Dell is going to be here. We'll be here in the future. Eventually, our travel program will recover, and let's really work together to find a situation and a program that works for both of us.
Very good. You mentioned in one of our calls when we were vetting and interviewing many travel managers for these awards, that you worked very closely with TripBam and that you've been a client for some time. But as one of sort of a suddenly smaller list of travel managers with travelers still on the road, you pushed for some new functionality in that platform that proved critical during COVID-19. And it had to do with identifying COVID-19 hotel closures and then being able to rebook. So TripBam is this reshopping tool, but you kind of tweaked it to serve your needs in COVID-19. You tell me what happened there.
So, well, as the travel commodities manager, I'm always watching the markets, right? And we were faced with industry uncertainty at the time. We had to contend with agency furloughs, right, and a reduction in hotel staff.
Right.
And so while the hotel data has always been decentralized, it was really compounded by the pandemic. There wasn't really a way to obtain a holistic view of hotel closures that not only could be kept up to date for us, but also in one place, in one repository. So, as a longstanding TripBam customer, I was very familiar with their technology. Their ability to develop enhancements on the fly is really outstanding. And so TripBam reshops about 90% of Dell's global hotel program, while our TMC only captures about 68% of the bookings.
Right.
So this is how we really determined that TripBam would be the best resource to aid in this report development. So once the functionality was developed for Dell, TripBam was able to share it with the rest of their clients, therefore benefiting, a much broader audience.
And I'm just curious, do you know what percentage of your hotels were closed and had to switch, just off the top of your head?
No, I don't. We had a lot of them, and the list has been dwindling down slowly. Good. So as we, get further into the year, all the hotels seem to be opening again.
And that's wonderful news. It's something that you can track in your own program that gives you a little bit of hope for the future as well, that you've seen those hotel closures happen and then fewer and fewer that are being rebooked because of that reason. So it's a wonderful thing to be able to see that. What conversations are you having with hotels now? So how are you positioning your program to recover in 2021, and what are your expectations?
So Dell has great relationships with our hotel partners, and we're in constant communications with them. So as we move into 2021, we expect our program to remain fluid and that it's going to continually evolve. So if the market conditions shift, we'll be using the new TripBam sourcing platform to request new rates from our hotels. Recovery for our travel program is going to be fairly slow in 2021, but I really believe we're in a great position to transform the solid foundation that we built into the best-in-class travel program that we want.
And are you just, as another question for you, Shannon, and I know that this is kind of coming out of the blue, but are you planning to return to an RFP or anything that resembles it, or are you kind of moving on from that?
We are not planning on returning to an RFP. This, I feel, was the opportunity to make a change. I always like the saying that, if we change the way we look at things, then the way that we look at things will change, right? So it's the opportunity to get rid of the RFP, and we will no longer be doing that. We're going to be using the TripBam functionality to really monitor our program on a more frequent basis and just do some ad hoc sourcing.
Mm-hmm. Very good. I'm assuming that will be a little bit easier if you have fewer hotels in your program, which I'm assuming you do in 2021.
That's correct.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Shannon. Thank you, and congratulations on your Best Practitioner Award and the success of your program during this extremely challenging year. Round of applause for Shannon. Thank you so much.